Hello and welcome back to another episode of TACHES Teaches. I'm Tash, and today I'd like to talk about possibly the most important device for getting a good mixdown. It's not a compressor, nor is it an EQ. The device which I'm talking about is in fact the tool. I've got a little project file here I'd like to demonstrate this on, so without further ado, let's just jump right in, shall we? So, the track I'm going to be showing you is a little spaghetti western number I've been working on, and while I was making it I got incredibly in the zone and totally disregarded everything I'm about to say, so this is a perfect way to demonstrate it on what not to do and how we can get it back to sort of a more usable state. So if I press play now, you'll see that despite the fact that none of these actual individual channels are clipping, we've got a bit of clipping happening on the master channel here. Let me find, let's play it from here. You can see that we're hitting 2.2 dBs over 0, and that is just unacceptable. If we look at the individual channels while it's playing, again, we can see that none of them are actually clipping. None of them are going over 0. Oh, we have the bass group going over 0. So, what I'm going to start off with, as a dance music producer, I'm a big fan of treating the kicks, with the utmost respect. So we're going to go over here to the kick channel. First of all, we're just going to solo this. And when this comes in, you can see that the kick is currently hitting at minus 3.1 dBs. And first of all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the volume of that kick to minus 18 dBFS. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to add a tool to the channel. This is the device of the hour that we're talking about. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down the volume. One thing I'm not quite sure about is why there is a both volume and gain knob on this. Maybe one of you could mention, a little bit about that in the comments. But as far as I've found, you can use the volume or the gain to do the same thing. So let's just start bringing this volume down until the kick is peaking at minus 18. So I'm going to start bringing this down. Cool, so we're now at minus 19. I'm going to bring it up 1, so we'll put that to minus 15. Cool, so we've now got minus 18 on the kick. And you can see that the master channel is at minus 19 now, with there we go. No effects on it, we're reading the same. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to this group. And first of all, I'm just going to put this back up to 0. I'm going to make all of the channels 0. In fact, I'll leave that for now. We're just going to focus on this Chinese tom. So let's first bring this one in as well. So we can see that now that is hitting at minus 7, which is sufficiently more than the kick. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a tool onto this channel as well, and I'm just going to bring the volume down until it's below minus 18. If it sounds good at minus 18, then that's fine, but ideally I don't want anything to go over minus 18 now. So that sounds good to me. Okay, cool. Now let's move over to this next sound. It's crucial to remember as well that I put this fader back up to 0. Let's go over to this surdo. So you can see that that's already peaking at around minus 18. That sounds good to me. But I've got the fader down 14 dBs here. And really what I want is to have 0 across the board here. And the reason of that is because I want to be able to have the small adjustments I make to the master, to the track faders, have the most resolution. These faders are logarithmic, which means the fact that from 0 down to 1 you have a lot more space than once you start getting down to minus 100 to minus, basically in short, once we start getting down here, you can see that the numbers start to increase and decrease a lot quicker. We're going, we're almost through. Look how much I'm having to move to go through 10 dBs. Once I start getting up here, I can really start to go into the decimals, the points. Cool, so I'm going to put that to 0 for now. And I know that I had that down at minus 14, so I'm just going to slap a tool on there. And I'm going to bring the volume on here down -14. And now, in theory, we should... Oh. Okay, that's a bit better. I might even bring this down a little bit more, set that to -15. Cool, so now let's move over to this big Casa drum. I don't actually have anything on there for now. Let's, for the sake of it, bring this here. See, that's way too loud. We're at down -3 on here, but we're also hitting at -5.8 actually on the fader. So I'm going to bring this up to 0. I'm going to go to the Casa drum, and I'm just going to add a tool, and I could probably bring this down about 25 dBs. Let's have a look. Maybe -20, because I do want this to be quite big and boomy. Cool. I can also bring this surdo down a bit more. I'm not quite keen on how loud that is. Cool. Now let's move over to the boom boom. So we're still hitting at -10 there, and we're at -3 dBs on the actual fader. So I'm going to bring that up to 0, and I think I could probably bring this around -16 down. Let's have a look. That sounds good. I might go down a little bit more on that. So the point of what I'm doing here is I'm making sure that none of the channels go over -18. We'll get to the groups in a sec, but none of the channels on their own are going over -18. Things can be below it, that's fine. We can be quieter than -18, but at unity gain, which is all of the faders at 0, I don't want anything louder than -18. So let's move to this second doom doom. So I'm not even liking that. I'm just going to get rid of that for now. So we've got this small Casa drum. Let's see what that sounds like. Doesn't sound like that's even playing, so I'm going to get rid of that as well. Then we've got this. Now this is taking up a huge amount of the headroom. You can see as we have -15, -14.7 on the master, and as soon as I bring this in, now we're peaking at -1. So I can bring that down a huge amount. Also, that's taking up a lot of space. Let's see what happens if I bring that down -16. So -16 dBs, and that's still hitting it above our threshold. So I'm going to bring that down maybe -25. Okay, that seems alright. So now let's go over to the big drum group here, and we can see that if I just solo the actual group on its own, we're registering... Okay, so all we need to do is just put a tool on the group as well. We can bring that down 2 dB. Nice. Okay, now we can move over to the snares. So I'm going to bring the group straight way back to 0, and let's check out the most important looking one, this one. So I bring that up to 0. You can see that we're hitting at -9. That's just way too hot. So we're going to add a tool. It's also important to note as well that you can just, if it's an instrument, you can just bring the output of the device down. This Spaghetti Western drum kit is a particularly hot. The entire sample library of the Spaghetti Western thing comes out very loud. Omnisphere is another plugin that is just unnecessarily loud from the get-go. So if I bring this volume down, that's a bit better, but we still wanted to get it a bit quieter. And it's unusual as well because I can't turn up my monitor speakers right now. I'm just using my laptop speakers. But when you work this way and you start bringing everything down a lot quieter, I'm so used to in the past working up here, like basically hitting 0. But this does give you a lot more clarity in the headroom, and things just seem to be easier to mix when they're all down at the right volumes in the first place. So that's at -26. I might bring that down a touch more, just a little bit more, because we do have some more snares to come in. Let's bring this guy in. So we can see straight away that that's way too loud. Okay, lovely. Now let's bring in this military snare. bring the volume down on that a bit. That should do. Okay, so now we've got, what's the actual snare group peaking at? Oh, we forgot this one. So that's at +1, so we can bring that down to 0. And let's have a little look here again. So we'll go to the kick and the big drums and the snares. And really all we're trying to do here is put all of the faders at 0 and make sure that nothing goes above -18. And really it's just a case of turning things down, which is a really nice way of working. Lovely. So let's move over to the claps and stomps now. The actual snare group is still peaking a little bit too loud. So we'll turn that down a touch. Bring that down 2 dB. Okay, I'm happy with that. So let's close off the snare group now. Let's check out the claps and stomps. Do we have anything on here? So we can turn that up back to 0 again, and we know that we're going to need to turn that down at least 10 dBs, because that's where we were. Okay, that sounds good. Now we've got this chain effect. Where's that? Let's check that one out. Okay, that's way too loud, and we're already at -5. So I'm going to turn that back up to 0, and let's solo these guys again. I'm just going to turn the output down on that. Okay, that sounds a bit better. Now let's move over to the cymbals. Let's check the actual group. How are we doing over here? That'll do. I'm going to turn the chain up a little bit more. Now let's go over to the cymbals here. So I'm going to bring that cymbal up. Now it's way too loud. So let's bring a tool onto it. I'm happy with that. Now we've got a shaker. Shakers are something that usually you see like down here because you want them to be quite quiet, but if I bring this up to 0, now it's too loud. So again, we're just going to bring the tool on. Nice, so we've leveled out the drums quite nicely, but if we go back to the actual drum group, you can see that we're still hitting at -13. So what are we going to do? We're going to put a tool on it, and we're just going to bring that down 5 dBs. Cool, so we've set our drums to a nice level now. So let's just mute some of these other groups so I don't have to keep soloing. Mute those. Mute, 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 mute. Okay, let's go to this bass now. So we can know that the bass is actually really unnecessarily loud. We've got the group hitting at -4.7. So we're going to set this to 0 dBs, and we're going to go onto the channel. And I'm actually just going to turn it down. Oh, I've already done that. I'm going to turn it down with a tool. So we can bring that down about 20 dBs, I imagine. Bring it up a little bit. It's getting quite hard for me to hear actually what's going on now because of how quiet the laptop is. I'm just going to add a tool to the actual main channel so I can turn it up a bit. Cool, so we're hitting at -22.3. Let's bring in the baritone guitar. That's coming in at -7. So the Omnisphere is a perfect example of when something is just too hot from the get-go. Let's open this up. I've even brought the volume down, I think. Oh no, I haven't. So we can bring that down a good amount. A lot of plugins, they'll literally be peaking as a preset. So let's have a look. Bring that down a bit more. Come down a fair bit more, actually. Still coming in quite loud. I'm okay with that. So now the actual bass group is hitting at -18 seems to be the loudest point. Cool, now let's move to the guitars. So the actual guitar group is at 0. Let's first work on the acoustic guitars. What have I got in here that's not supposed to be muted? In fact, forget the acoustic guitars for now. I'm just going to 0 those. So with the electric guitars, we've got here the lead guitar sound. So this is coming in at -10, which is way too loud. So let's bring that down 9 dBs and see how that works. Could probably bring that down a bit more. Nice. So what are we hitting at the loudest point there? I'm happy with that. Let's go to the pedal steel now. So that's way too loud. Let's slap a tool on it. Bring the volume down. Let's try -15 first. The electric guitar and the pedal steel on this were played by Tone Ranger. I would thoroughly recommend you check out his music. It's absolutely bonkers. It's a huge inspiration for me trying to make this kind of music. So that seems alright. Let's try this guy out. Slap a tool on it. Nice. Okay, so do we have anything else in this section? Well, we've got this cornet. Let's see what that sounds like. I'm imagining we're going to need to bring the volume down a sufficient amount on here. Nice, and you can see as we start to do this, when I was making this song in the first place, all of these drums were so... there was no space, you know. I kept adding things, kept adding low, boomy drums. This particular big drum section now sounds like there's a lot more definition, a lot more clarity, and a lot more dynamics as well. When everything was pushed up and we were getting everything as like boom, boom, the actual drum pattern didn't have nearly the same kind of groove as... and with the bass as well. Now everything has its own space and place, and that the only thing we've done was we put everything to 0 and used the tool. And I haven't even done any Q or any kind of compression on any of these things or any extra effects, and it's already sounding a lot better. Once you start then adding effects, it's important to note as well. Let's go to the drums now. On the drum channel, say I were to add, let's add the vinyl, the Abbey Road vinyl. So what you're going to then see is that we're now peaking at minus 18.3, and this gain staging is important for going into the master channel. It's important on the individual channels, but it's also important between devices on an individual channel. And say I have this Abbey Road vinyl thing. I'm going to turn the noise and the crackle off. As I turn this on, you'll see that the volume will change. And as I start to do things like drive it, let's not use the wow, let's go back to the flutter. As I start to do things here, you'll see that we've now actually changed the overall volume we had. And you could bring the output down to make sure that, what were we hitting at? Minus 18.9 on that beginning. We can bring it down a little bit more. Touch more. A little bit more. And the point of this is, ideally, you want to be able to turn a plugin on and off and hear its effect rather than an increase in volume. And, you know, our ears naturally perceive things that are louder as better. So by making sure that you're gain staging correctly and making sure that when you're affecting something, you're not just making it louder and worse sounding, but going, oh, well, you know, that does sound a lot better. We now have a bit more perspective on whether or not what we've done to these drums is good. Let's listen soloed. Do we prefer this, or do we prefer... Or say we added a saturator, for example. We're now making the volume louder. It sounds maybe a bit better with the driving, but I'd need to then bring the volume down again. So I could just add another tool after that. If I now group these two, we can check out whether or not it actually sounds better. And I can safely say I don't think it sounds better. Anyways, this tool is a brilliant way of working for doing the minimum amount of work but getting the maximum results. If we go back over to the master channel right now and I turn off what I've done here, you can see that we're still peaking around minus 18. And this gives us a huge amount of room for if we do want to then we do want to add some compression to the master channel. We have a lot of space to then bring it up because we've just got so much headroom. If we were to add, have I got an L? Oh, I don't have them. Let's just slap a peak limiter on here. And we can really boost the shit out of this now. Oh. Bloody brilliant. Let's try one more time with an effect. Let's go back to this bass that we have. I'm going to turn off the effect that I had. You can see that the bass without the effect is peaking at minus 27. When I turn on the effect, we're now peaking at minus 24, which means we've added 3 dBs of gain. And I would have had to turn this down less. If I put this to minus 16.2, now the volume is hitting at where we would have liked it to with this off. So all I have to do is go on to CLA bass, and I'm now down at minus 7. Let's just turn that down, minus 10. And now we're back to a reasonable level. Let's try this one more time with these sounds. So this clip-clop is way too loud at 0 dB. Have I got... Okay, yeah. So I'm just going to slap a tool on here, turn it down 20 dBs. And let's check out the tubular bell. Have we got anything in there? Way too loud. So we'll turn that down on the plugin. anyways, the tool. It is a fantastic tool, and I urge you to have a play around with this. If you are the kind of person who constantly has red lines in the mix, or you have channels which are really low down, you know, you've got channels at minus 60 dB, try this out of getting everything at 0 and working with the tool, and you will start to then realize that the changes that you need to make to volumes in order to get that better sounding mix you're looking for are only usually a case of 2 or 3 dBs up and down, you know, on the actual faders. But trying to keep everything close to 0 is a really lovely way of working without getting too caught up in the madness of mixing. But that's all we have time for today, and I hope that this little rambling has been useful to some extent. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and smash that subscribe button to stay up to date with all of my future videos. And if you'd like to take your support a step further, then please consider becoming a patron too. As always, happy Wednesday and happy creating.